behind Squid Game. Squid Game, a series that turned childhood games into deadly challenges, robbing us of sleep and maybe even a little faith in humanity. But what if I told you that behind those green tracksuits and masked guards lies a true story? Yes, you heard that right. It's not just fiction, folks. Reality is far more unsettling than anything Netflix could ever show us. Welcome to explore and discover Curious World, where curiosity gets a bit more bizarre and often leaves us speechless, or with a stifled scream. Let's dive into the brothers' home, Korea's Auschwitz. Oh yes, today is no laughing matter. Or maybe it is. The origins of horror. Let's rewind to 1979. South Korea was preparing to shine on the global stage with the 1988 Olympics. A golden dream that hid a dark side, cleaning the streets of any sign of indecency. And by indecency, I don't mean graffiti or fast food joints, but vagrants, homeless people, and anyone who dared to look unphotogenic for international tourists. A brilliant idea from dictator Park Chung-hee, who decided to create rehabilitation centers. Sounds like a movie, doesn't it? Unfortunately, it's real life. The plan was as simple as it was cruel: round up anyone considered a public shame and throw them into special facilities. But, as often happens with these grand humanitarian plans, good intentions were forgotten, giving way to exploitation and brutality. The facilities were more like overcrowded prisons than care centers. And this is where the brothers' home enters the scene, bringing with it a level of cruelty that's hard to imagine. Think this all started as a plan to showcase South Korea in its best light? A kind of national marketing strategy, if you will, that turned into one of the darkest chapters in the country's history. A clear example of how dreams of grandeur can morph into real-life nightmares. The monster called Brothers' Home. Among these centers, the Brothers' Home stands out. A place calling itself a home is like calling a lion's cage a kitten daycare. Originally established as an orphanage, it was soon repurposed as a care center, the largest in the country. At its helm was Park In-gun, a former military man who seemed to have mastered the art of cruelty and greed. The system was simple: the more people he detained, the more money he received from the government. The result? A concentration camp with 40,000 prisoners over the years, far exceeding its maximum capacity of 500 people. A true evil genius. But how did this machine of horror operate? Let's use a practical example. Imagine being a child waiting for the school bus. One moment you're free, with your backpack and your lunch lovingly prepared by your mom. The next, you're thrown onto a truck, headed the brothers' home. Once there, you're handed a blue tracksuit, stripped of every shred of normalcy, and plunged into a nightmare of beatings, forced labor, and abuse. And let's not forget one chilling detail: every new prisoner was another number in Park In-gun's accounting book, another brick in his personal fortune, estimated at millions of dollars. A system that rewarded inhumanity and seemed to know no bounds, shattered lives and daily hell. Now, imagine being a disabled person, a child waiting for the bus, or a street vendor. One moment you're free, and the next you're in a blue tracksuit, ready to endure abuse, beatings, and forced labor. And let's not forget the guards, prisoners promoted to jailers, a kind of promotion based on violence. All of this was topped off with mandatory hymns and Bible verses. A religious dystopia with a South Korean twist. Living conditions were unbearable. Overcrowding, poor hygiene, malnutrition, and constant violence were the norm. But that's not all. Brothers' Home also set a macabre record: the sale of children. That's right. Many of the young prisoners were sold abroad, with the silent consent of the authorities. A veritable human trafficking network. And do you think the worst was confined within the walls of Brothers' Home? Absolutely not. The effects of this system extended far beyond, influencing entire generations who lived with the trauma of being victims of such a deeply corrupt and inhumane system. Influences on Squid Game? And here's where Squid Game comes into play. The blue tracksuits, the deadly challenges for pure entertainment, and the lack of humanity, sound familiar? Even though the director never officially confirmed the connection, the similarities are chilling. Perhaps there aren't games like red light, green light with lethal consequences, but the sense of despair is palpable. A reality that surpasses fiction. And as hard as it is to believe, it's crucial to remember that Squid Game is only a reflection of an even harsher reality. If you've ever wondered why the series leaves you with a sense of unease, well, now you know why. The roots of that feeling are firmly planted in human history, a history that, sadly, is not fiction. Justice? A big word. Do you think justice was finally served? Well, prepare for a bitter laugh. Parkin Gunn was sentenced to only 2.5 years for embezzlement. For the human rights violations? Nada. Zero. The truth only came to light decades later, thanks to a survivor and a university professor. A heroic effort that shed some light on one of the darkest pages of South Korean history. But the real issue is that these stories tend to be forgotten. Even today, many people know nothing about Brothers Home and the atrocities committed there. This is why it's essential to talk about it, to remember, and to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. And what about you? Do you think it's right to let these stories fade into oblivion? Or do you believe there's still hope to learn from the past? Let us know in the comments. And here we are at the end of this story, leaving a bitter taste but also a lot to reflect on. If you enjoyed this journey through the world's curiosities and horrors, subscribe to explore and discover Curious World. Every week, we bring you stories that will make you laugh, cry, and, most importantly, think. What do you think about this story? Do you believe Squid Game owes a debt to this tragic reality? Let us know in the comments. Until the next exploration. And here we are at the end of this story, leaving a bitter taste but also a lot to reflect on. If you enjoyed this journey through the world's curiosities and horrors, subscribe to explore and discover Curious World. Every week, we bring you stories that will make you laugh, cry, and, most importantly, think. What do you think about this story? Do you believe Squid Game owes a debt to this tragic reality? Let us know in the comments. Until the next exploration. And here we are at the end of this story, leaving a bitter taste but also a lot to reflect on. If you enjoyed this journey through the world's curiosities and horrors, subscribe to explore and discover Curious World. Every week, we bring you stories that will make you laugh, cry, and, most importantly, think. What do you think about this story? Do you believe Squid Game owes a debt to this tragic reality? Let us know in the comments. Until the next exploration.